To Catch a Predator, one of the largest shows that America had ever seen. It brought millions of people together against one common enemy: predators. Some of the sickest and scummiest people that wander the earth were being exposed like rats, scurrying from the light that was Chris Hansen and his camera crew. The show was years ahead of its time. Technology, sting houses, entertainment, and justice. They had it all, and America completely ate it up as they held their children close. But how could a show that operated on the single principle of protecting children fail so bad and pretty much disappear from the internet? Well, it turns out that the history of To Catch a Predator is darker than you think. Chris Hansen, a name synonymous with dramatic confrontations and hidden camera stings, he was the face of one of the most controversial reality television series in American history, To Catch a Predator. A segment on Dateline NBC first aired in November 2004 and quickly became a sensation. America was hooked. I mean, who doesn't like to see a predator get hunted? The bad guy failed. The villain finally faced justice. To Catch a Predator operated under a simple premise. Adult men thinking they were meeting minors for illicit encounters were instead greeted by Hansen and his team with their cameras rolling and the world watching. But they weren't alone. The show's sting operations were set up in collaboration with the watchdog group Perverted Justice, which involved adults posing as minors in online chats to lure potential predators to a decoy house. Once these men arrived, expecting to meet a young teenager, they were instead confronted by Hansen, who would often read back their incriminating chat logs as they sat helplessly in that infamous chair near the kitchen counter. The dramatic tension would then peak when law enforcement, who had been waiting nearby, arrested the suspects. These stings spanned 12 operations across the United States and resulted in numerous arrests. While the series was loved by many for its righteous cause, it wasn't without its critics. Ethical and legal questions were raised about the methods used in these operations. Some claimed that the show lacked journalistic integrity and focused more on ratings than actually reporting the crimes. And in a way, these criticisms had some merit, because the predators didn't always face justice, and this was due to the intricate entrapment laws and tainted evidence. A great example of this is one of the team's operations that was conducted in Murphy, Texas, in which 24 men had been nailed, but none of them faced any charges. The district attorney and the mayor in that area refused to prosecute these men because they felt the situation had been tainted by the entertainment and cinematic aspects of the show. But this was a common thing with most shows that operated with the same goal as To Catch a Predator. The law was just too intricate for the involvement of cameras and an audience. But nonetheless, everything clicked and results were being produced at the time. Sick adults were being exposed, and at least some faced real life-altering consequences. Take the case of a man named Ryan Hogan, or as the Chris Hansen team knew him as Ryan4686. Ryan would initiate a sexually charged conversation with who he thought was a 14-year-old girl, but was really just the Perverted Justice team. And the really disgusting thing was that when the girl told him her age, he didn't even flinch, even trying to soften the age gap by saying that him being 24 was only a bit older. And so after dozens of even more disgusting conversations between Ryan and the decoy minor, which I can't show here on YouTube for obvious reasons, Ryan had finally agreed to meet up at the unbeknownst to him, Sting House. So as Ryan was making his way to the decoy house, something weird happened. Ryan would phone the decoy and claim that he wasn't going to link up with her anymore, because he felt that it was wrong and illegal to do what he was doing. But don't take this sudden change of heart as Ryan finally finding his conscience and acting like a normal human. As the Chris Hansen team stated, the only reason he suddenly changed his mind was because he saw a police vehicle near the decoy house and got spooked, something he'd failed to mention. But this wouldn't be enough to make Ryan back off, as he would later push his limits and do the most disgusting thing so far.
But even that doesn't stop him. He gets comfortable again, turns on his webcam, exposes himself, and masturbates, all while wearing his New York City firefighter sweatshirt.
Yeah, it's obscene. It's obscene.
But then, the Chris Hansen team decided that enough was enough and that they should catch this predator before he'd get even more spooked and slip away.
At first, firefighter Ryan says he thought the girl was 19. Then he decides to come clean.
The reality is this. You had a conversation with somebody who said they were 14 years old. It was a very explicit sexual conversation. You got in your car and you drove by the house where she said she was home alone with no parents.
Right.
That's all true, right?
Yes. But did I stop? No. Did I make the right, did I, in the end, make the right decision as what not to do? Yes, I did.
You said that you had every intent of showing up at this house, except that you saw a marked police car parked next door.
I had driven, before I saw the marked police car, I made the decision not to stop. I really did.
But what about his lewd performance on the webcam in front of someone he thought was 14?
And then afterwards, you turned on the webcam and transmitted this picture
That was not supposed to be transmitted.
of yourself exposing yourself.
That was not transmitted. For the record, I was talking to another person at the time. I did not intend for her to see that.
Despite his many excuses, Ryan would go on to face very real consequences. The City of New York Department of Investigations would release a statement that said, "This morning, before United States Judge Frederick Block in Brooklyn Federal Court, New York City firefighter Ryan Hogan pleaded guilty to knowingly and intentionally attempting to transfer obscene matter to another individual who was younger than 16 years of age. As a result of his guilty plea, Hogan's employment with the FDNY will be terminated. He must register as a sex offender and obtain psychological treatment." And there were dozens of others just like foolish little Ryan. Ryan was only one part of an 18-man sting operation that was conducted in Long Island, New York. And there were dozens of other stings similar to these that were conducted throughout varied locations. And let me tell you, they didn't miss a single race, social status, age, or level of weirdness. It's honestly scary. It's only until shows like To Catch a Predator that people started waking up to just how common these predators were. Whether it was rabbis, white, black, Asian, man, or woman, it didn't matter. Chris Hansen would catch them all like the Pokemon they were.
Is an Emmy award-winning journalist and a correspondent for Dateline NBC. His new book is called To Catch a Predator, Protecting Your Kids from Online Enemies Already in Your Home. Please welcome our friend Chris Hansen.
It was 2007, and at this point the show had been running for a few years, so Chris had some accolades and achievements under his belt, but this would all come crashing down on the fateful day of November 5th, 2006, the show's final episode. The episode begins with the introduction of Chris's next target, a man by the name of Bill Condrat. But his age of 56 wasn't the most surprising thing. It was the fact that he was the assistant district attorney for Rockwall County in Texas, with a quote-unquote near photographic memory for the law. So you'd think with such a photographic memory, he'd know not to commit such a heinous crime he'd definitely sentenced others for, but unfortunately he would. The investigation began when Bill would initiate contact with the 13-year-old decoy on an online chatting website. Bill would then lie about his age, stating that he was 19 years old, and then continuing to have the same disgusting conversations that these predators often had to fuel their sick desires. Fast forward a little bit, Chris had realized the true gravity of the situation due to Bill's position, and so he had ensured that he had both the help of the perverted justice team and the local law enforcement. But here's where Chris and the police made their first mistake, which was that the police was not involved in any of the investigations or research that was done, and only the arrest, something that would prove to be fatal later on. But nevertheless, the operation continued for now. The team first tried to get Bill to meet the decoy at the decoy house for obvious reasons. At first, Bill seemed very adamant on meeting up with the decoy and was also very active in the chats. However, when the time came to actually link up, Bill would be less active in the chat room and seemed less and less interested. Whether or not this was because he was coming to his senses or the fact that he realized that this may be a trap, one thing remained true. Chris wasn't gonna let a man with so much power get away with his sick intentions. So the team decided that they'd instead go to him, the same way they'd done many times before, but this time was drastically different. When law enforcement, accompanied by NBC cameras, arrived at Condrat's home to execute an arrest warrant, the situation took a drastic turn. Condrat, realizing the gravity of his predicament and the public exposure that would follow, retreated into his home and refused to come out. And a few moments later, the police would enter and state their purpose, but Bill would respond to that by pulling out his gun, claiming that he was not going to hurt them. But then this happened. A single shot was fired. Bill Condrat had taken his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and all hell broke loose. This shocking event sent ripples throughout the media and the legal community, raising serious questions about the methods used by To Catch a Predator. All eyes were on Chris Hansen and his team. On June 1st, 2007, the Collin County District Attorney's Office declined to prosecute any of the 23 cases brought against those arrested on this installment of the show, citing insufficient evidence. District Attorney John Roach explained that in 16 of the cases he had no jurisdiction because the decoys and suspects who participated in the online chats were not in that county when they did so. The local police had also been investigated, and it was concluded that the Murphy Police Department had done literally no prior investigation before making the arrests, thus making most, if not all of them, illegal under Texas law. This conclusion essentially made the 23 men who had been previously arrested free men under the eyes of the law. Condrat's sister, Patricia Condrat, subsequently sued NBC Universal, saying that the police had pretty much raided Condrat's house at the behest of the NBC. In January 2008, federal judge Denny Chin dismissed most of Patricia Condrat's claims, but found that she had a reasonable chance of proving that the NBC had pressed police into engaging in unreasonable and unnecessary tactics solely for entertainment value, thus creating a substantial risk of suicide or other harm. So later that year, NBC were forced into an undisclosed settlement with Patricia Condrat, in which I presume she was compensated heavily. The show was then cancelled in 2008, and in an interview with Time magazine, Hansen stated that the show had simply run its course, and thus came an end to Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator.